So good evening. My name is Gloria Gutierrez. I'm the Director of Natural Resources for the League of Women Voters of the Torrance area. This information session is being conducted in conjunction with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, which serves some of the residents in our service area. Welcome to this informative discussion about water recycling. So just a little bit about the League. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. It encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. This league represents Torrance, Gardena, Lomita, Harbor City, and Carson. To find out more about our upcoming events, you can go to our website at LWVTorrancearea.org. And to join our mailing list, you can text 444-999, enter your email address and the keyword LWVTA. So I do want to welcome you again to this evening's discussion. We'll be recording this event and it'll be aired on our Facebook page. And now here's what you can expect. First, we're going to be hearing from Rupam Soni, the outreach lead for the Metropolitan Water District's Recycled Water Program.
Great, thank you so much, Gloria. So I have a little presentation that I prepared. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a new program that we have called our Regional Recycled Water Program, but I'm also going to kind of give some information about Metropolitan Water District, who we are, our water supply. We're in the midst of a drought, talk a little bit about that. And then at the end, we'll have a chance for questions and answers and any discussion. So I don't know if you all are familiar with the Metropolitan Water District. We are a water wholesaler, so we never send you a water bill. So if you don't know who we are, that's absolutely okay. Now you will. So we provide water to this area here shown on this map. It's Southern California. We cover an area that's 5,200 square miles and serves 19 million people. And the way we provide water is we provide our water to our 26 member agencies, who in turn then provide water to their customers, to you. And so in the Torrance area, we provide, our member agency is the City of Torrance, and also the West Basin Municipal Water District, which covers the general South Bay area. And if you take a closer look at our water supplies, you can see here where our water comes from. So a lot of our water, actually the majority of our water in Southern California is imported. It's imported from Northern California via the State Water Project System, or the California Aqueduct. And you may have seen that aqueduct if you ever drive up the 5 freeway to San Francisco or Sacramento. You can see the aqueduct running right next to the freeway for a good portion of that drive. And then our water also comes from the Colorado River via the Colorado River Aqueduct. And so these two supplies, well, they make up the majority of our water. We also have some local water supplies in Southern California. So in the South Bay area, there's groundwater supplies available. There's also recycled water supplies. And then conservation also contributes a lot to our water supply reliability. I wanted to talk a little bit more about our imported water supplies. We are in the midst of a third year of a very severe drought. The last 2 years have been the driest years on record. January through March of 2022 have also been the driest years on record. Our water from the State Water Project the amount we're getting this year is extremely low. We're getting what we call a 5% allocation. What that basically translates to is what we would get in 1 month from that state water system, we have to spread out through the whole entire year. So could you imagine if you have to spread your monthly salary out for the whole entire year, how difficult that would be. And then on the Colorado River side, we have been in a long-term drought. So we've been in a drought for almost a couple of decades. Lake Mead, which is one of our large reservoirs on the Colorado River system, has hit its lowest level it's ever been since we started filling it. And I don't know if you can tell this through the pictures, but there's major bathtub rings on these reservoirs. And so We are right now asking for, and I just added this is a new picture that I just added in. Every month during the winter season, what we do is something called a snow survey. The state of California goes up to a specific location. It's called Philip Station in the Sierras, and they measure the snow level. If you see this tape measure here, that's what the average level of snow is on April 1st, the last time they did this snow survey and when this picture was taken. And you can see here, we just have a couple of inches on the ground. So we really are in a drought emergency, and we're just reminding everyone to conserve as much as you possibly can. So if you can take a shorter shower, if you can turn off, use outdoor water a little bit less than you normally do, all of that makes a huge difference and really help us conserve our water supplies and get through this trying year. But beyond that, we're also planning for the future. And here's some tips I have on conservation too. And you can see here different things that you can do to help conserve water. So this kind of focuses on outdoor use. That's where about half of our water usage is. And so just again, little tips, little things that you can do about, turn off your automatic sprinklers when it rains, just use less water outside. All of that, again, really makes a difference. But again, we are planning for the future. And one of the ways that we're doing that is through our regional recycled water program. So what this program is it's taking used water, we call that wastewater, from your homes, from businesses, from industries. And a lot of that water in LA County flows to the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. And so Brian Langpap here is my colleague who works at the LA County Sanitation Districts. They operate the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. And all that water right now, once it's cleaned, flows out into the ocean. And so instead, what this project would do is take that cleaned water and send it through an advanced water treatment plant. And what would happen there is that water would be further purified. And then that purified water could be used for a number of different things. We could use it to help replenish our groundwater basins in the area, which we rely heavily on for drinking. We could also send it to our member agencies, and they could provide it to industries and others in the area that use a lot of water in their processes. And then we could also even send this water. Some regulations are coming out at the end of next year that would allow us to send this water directly into our drinking water system. And we would do that by sending this water into our water treatment plants, where it could mix in with our imported water supplies and then go out through our delivery system out to our member agencies and to homes and businesses and industries to be used again, and the cycle would continue. And all of this would produce a new drought-proof supply of water for our region. This is a really big program, so it would provide 150 million gallons of water daily. That's enough water for 1.5 million people. So that's about the same number of people in the entire city of Philadelphia. And it would make this one of the largest programs of its kind in the world. Currently, there's a project in Orange County, and it's called the Groundwater Replenishment System, and it holds the title of being the largest program of its kind in the world. It's at 130 million gallons daily, so this is just a little bit more than that. And then you can see here, I didn't mention this, but this project would produce about 168,000 acre feet of water. And what an acre foot of water is just the way we measure water in the water industry. And so an acre foot is what it sounds like. It's an acre in area, so about the size of a football field, a foot high. It's almost 326,000 gallons of water, and it's enough water for 3 homes for 1 year. So there's a number of projects that are like this across the state. California, because of our dry climate, especially Southern California, we're leaders in recycling water. And so I wanted to just point out some of the other projects. I mentioned Orange County. Here you can see that with the letters OCWD, that stands for Orange County Water District. They have a very large project. I also want to give a shout out to our project partners, LA County Sanitation Districts. They also have a project that they're doing in the Whittier area that they've been doing since 1962, where they've been recycling water. They've been taking water and using it to replenish the groundwater basins and ensure a reliable water supply for the area. And then you can see there's a number of other different projects as well here. So other projects in the South Bay area, another huge project that's about to come online in San Diego called Pure Water San Diego. And then another project I want to point out here that's also going to come online in the Calabasas area too. So they're far and wide. We're definitely not the first, but we would be the largest at full scale. And of course, there's tremendous water supply benefits for this project. So again, I mentioned a drought-proof supply. It's a local water supply. So right here in our own backyard, that would replenish those groundwater basins, which we use quite a bit of here in Southern California. They make up about 30% of our water supply. The other thing that's really important to note about this water supply and what makes it important is our imported supplies have to cross over the San Andreas Fault to get water to us. And so if there were a large earthquake on that fault, we would be in some serious trouble. But this project would be readily available for us and give us water no matter what. And besides the water supply benefits, there's also tremendous economic benefits. So we did a study with the LA Economic Development Corporation, and what we found was this project would create nearly 50,000 jobs, and these are local jobs during construction. And then as we continue to operate the facility, we would sustain just over 1,000 jobs and generate over $300 million in economic output. So tremendous economic benefits as well as those water supply benefits. And here is a map view of the program. I love looking at it like this because it reminds us why we call it the Regional Recycled Water Program. It really is regional in nature. So we would have so you can see down here in Carson is where the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant is located. And this is where our source water would come from. We would construct an advanced water treatment facility nearby, and then we could send this water to 4 groundwater basins: the West Coast Basin right here in the South Bay, the Central Basin very close by in the central Los Angeles area and also covers Long Beach and Southeast LA County, and then all the way up here to the main San Gabriel Basin. This is almost 37 miles away from the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant in Carson. And so this would require the construction of a new pipeline, 7 feet in diameter, to send water all the way up to the main San Gabriel Basin. And then from here, it's just a short distance, just a few miles to Metropolitan's Weymouth Water Treatment Plant, which is located in Laverne. And here is where we could get that water directly into our drinking water system. And from here, we could get that water to most of our service area. There's also an existing pipeline that would allow us to send that water down to Orange County, where we have another large water treatment plant called our Deemer Water Treatment Plant. And then from our Deemer Water Treatment Plant, we have an existing pipeline to send that water to our Orange County groundwater basin as well, too. So again, this project's reach is far and wide. We're looking at a number of different alignments for our pipeline, just shown a couple of them here. Since it is a large pipeline and a long pipeline, we would like to get off city streets as much as possible. So we're looking at working with Edison. They have a right-of-way along the San Gabriel River and using that right-of-way to construct the pipeline. But there is a portion where we will be in public right-of-way as well. And then here is a closer look at the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. So as I mentioned, the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts operate this facility. They have 11 wastewater treatment plants that they operate throughout the county. This one is their largest facility, and it's also the only facility where they send water to the ocean. So it's a huge opportunity for us to be able to recycle this water and reuse it as a drinking water supply. This is a large plant, 400 acres in size. About 200 acres are used for wastewater operations. And so there is room at the at the site, at the plant, to construct this advanced water treatment facility. And you can see this dashed yellow line here. That's where we're looking at putting in the full-scale advanced water treatment facility. Right now, we're already operating a demonstration facility for the program. So this entire program is right now in its planning phases. However, this demonstration facility is up and operating. And actually, that's where I physically am today. And that's where my virtual background is today, too, is at this demonstration site. And what we're doing at this demonstration site is we're testing a 3-step purification process that would take already cleaned wet water and purify it to such a high level that it's near distilled in quality. It's so pure that we would have to, in fact, add minerals back into the water to be able to send it into a pipeline. Otherwise, that pipe material would leach into the water. That's how pure it is. And this process, what we're looking at, this purification process, basically removes almost everything from the water. It removes salts from the water. It removes pharmaceuticals from the water, bacteria, viruses, really, really tiny particles that are up down to the molecular level. And also PFAS chemicals, which are chemicals, they're called forever chemicals because they stay in the environment almost forever. They're what you find in nonstick pans, and they've been in the news quite a bit lately, but this purification process is able to remove those too. And then here on the right, you can see a rendering of what a full-scale purification facility would look like. We have a number of project partners on this program. I mentioned the Los Angeles County sanitation districts. We're also working with the groundwater basin managers in the area, and also many of Metropolitan's member agencies. So the ones shown here on this slide are ones that we have letters of intent to work with them. They rely on these groundwater basins as part of their drinking water supply. They may also have program facilities in their service area. And so we're working very closely with them. And I want to give a shout out to Leah Portman. She's here today from the city of Torrance. Thank you for joining us. And then we also have partners on our from the Colorado River system. And so we've worked with the Southern Nevada Water Authority, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and the Central Arizona Project for decades on our Colorado River system. And they have signed agreements with us. They are helping pay for some of this project right now. And what they're looking at is what we're looking together at is if there's a way that we can exchange some of the water that we take from the Colorado River and provide keep in that Colorado River system so they would have access to it. And in turn, they would help pay for this project. So that's a really exciting partnership. So this project would not only benefit all of us in Southern California, but truly benefit the whole Southwest region. And then we have other partners we're working with. I mentioned Edison, and LA County Public Works also has program facilities we would use to help replenish the groundwater basin, the Army Corps of Engineers also. And so here is a cost estimate for this project. This was done back in 2018, and we're revising these costs right now, but our capital costs are $3.4 billion. Our annual operations and maintenance costs are estimated at $129 million. And the project would provide, as I mentioned earlier, 168,000 acre-feet of water. And so that translates to a cost of $1,800 per acre-foot of water. So what does that mean? Well, that is what new water supplies cost. So this cost is within the range, an average cost for new water supplies, but it is more than what our existing water supplies are. So our imported supplies, which, you know, we built these systems many years ago, they provide us with a lot of water. They cost, we sell that water for $1,000 to $1,100 per acre foot to our member agencies. So this is more than that. So we are looking for ways to offset these costs and not make not have this huge sticker price shock on this water. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're looking for state funding. Right now, there's a surplus in the state budget. So we're trying to see if we can get some of that surplus towards this project. We are also going to be seeking federal grant funds for this project. So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Jobs Act has funding available. There's a new grant funding program for large-scale recycled water programs like this, so we'll be applying for that. There's $450 million available for that. And then we have partnership funds. I mentioned our Colorado River partners, and also the LA County sanitation districts are contributing funds, and those also will help us reduce costs for this program. And so this is what our schedule looks like. We've been working with Brian's agency for over a decade on this program, and we've got a decade to go. We're in the midst of our environmental planning phase. We expect to come out with environmental documents, or actually begin the environmental document process this summer. So we will have scoping meeting and a notice of preparation for CEQA documents coming out, we expect in August, and then have a draft environmental impact report next year, and then have a final environmental impact report in 2024. And then after that, we would begin design and construction, and we would be up and operating in 2032. But we are looking for ways to accelerate this timeline by a couple of years. Some of the grant funding will help us accelerate that because we'll have funding available with a deadline of when we need to use it. And so that could help take some time off this project. And then we have some legislation out. Public agencies are required to follow the public contracting code, which means that we need to do a design process, then we go out to bid on that process, and then we construct. We have legislation out right now. It's Assembly Bill 1845. There's also a Senate Bill 991. I think I got that number jumbled wrong, but that will allow Metropolitan for the Assembly Bill and a lot of public agency for the other bill to do alternate delivery methods. So things like design build and progressive design build, and that also can take some time off this timeline. So our next steps, we're in the midst of a very extensive community outreach program, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come speak to all of you about this project. Our goal is to raise awareness of the program, why we need this program, about the drought, anything you can do to conserve water, and just let people know that there's a new water supply coming and what this supply and this project involves. And we're especially targeting those communities that will receive this water and will also may have program facilities in their communities. So, our advanced water treatment facility or a pipeline coming to them. And so we would love for you to stay involved. We have an e-newsletter. I'll put information about how to sign up for it in the chat, so you can stay engaged on this program. If there's any others, I know a lot of you are very active in your communities. So if there are any others you think we should be connecting with, we would love to hear your ideas for that. We'll be back in touch when we're ready with our notice of preparation and with scoping meetings. We'd love for you to participate in our environmental review process. And the picture you see here on the left is our demonstration facility, and we are finally starting to resume in-person tours. We also offer virtual tours. If you're interested in that, we'd love to set up a tour for your group. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead. I also have our website here and my contact information, but I'll also put all of that in the chat.
I had a few questions, but I wanted to ask the members who attended or any other public members who joined whether they had any questions they might want to ask first.
The only question I have is, what have you decided? Can you give us a hint other than spreading the word? Because to me, that's the most critical. How do we, this kind of information needs to be on television and social media and all that, because it's just, this drought it's really going to do damage to all of us around here if we don't figure out, and to think that this whole thing's not going to be up and running till 2030. I mean, do we really have that much time?
I had a similar question, although I was looking at it like, you mentioned the environmental impact report. Sorry, my son's in here. And I was wondering if that report is going to include what the cost is of not having this project completed earlier, right? So we know that there's been damage to the infrastructure as a result of not having enough water in our in-ground stores. And I'm wondering if the environmental impact is going to include that, what happens if we delay this project.
So I'm not sure what exactly is going to be in our environmental impact report yet, but I think that's a really good comment and something I will share with our environmental planning team. Gloria, thank you for bringing that up. And yes, I know it's been a very challenging time for all of us that work in the water industry, but I think also because we work in the water industry and Charles, Leah, please feel free to add to this too. We know what we're all doing behind the scenes to just ensure that when you turn on that tap 24/7, that you always have water supply available. We applaud all of you because I mentioned how an acre foot of water is enough water for 3 families per year. Well, in 1990s, when I started my career in this industry, that number used to be 1 acre foot of water was enough for 1 family per year. Then it went to 2. And then just a couple years back, it went to 3. And so that conservation makes a huge difference. And I know that people will step up and get us through this year to come, these coming months. And know that we have water and storage, like we have a lot of things in place. It's just if the drought continues year after year after year, we don't want to turn into a situation. We don't want to get into a situation we have to ration water. We're not there yet. We have a lot of water in storage too, but we just want to make sure that we have enough based on the drought conditions we have this year. We don't want to overuse what we've got. We don't want to keep dipping deep into our savings, right? And not have anything for the time when you actually really do need the savings. And so that's what our plan is here. And then to know that with climate change, things are really changing. We never expected impacts. We knew climate change was coming. We knew there was going to be impacts to water. We just didn't expect to see things like this. Like we got some rain these past couple of years. But the ground, because of climate change, the ground was so dry that and we got snow. That's really the way our water supply works, is it's snow melts. That snow, when it melted, that rain, it went straight into the ground, into saturating the ground, and it didn't make its way into our reservoirs. So we had a limited precipitation, and then with climate change, it exacerbated the whole situation. And so we're really trying to figure out how things are going to change in the future. And so this program will just help with that water reliability, because we can every day count on water coming from the LA County sanitation districts and not have to worry about rain or shine or what the weather is going to be, if it's snowing in Colorado or up in the Bay Area or in the Sierras. So it'll really help with that reliability. And I appreciate all your comments, your concern, and your thoughts on all of this. And yes, we're absolutely, Jackie, trying to get the word out on social media, ad campaigns, the news, to let people know about the drought, and anything they do really makes a difference. If you can just save 1 gallon of water a day, and just for reference, and during the shower, about 2 to 3 gallons of water is what you're using. So just if you shave even 1 minute off your shower, and there's 19 million of us in our service area, every day we're all saving 19 million gallons. So we really can, working together, make a huge difference. Deborah, your hand is up.
Yes. Can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah, I heard you say a certain amount of construction jobs. Is that the number of jobs over you were mentioning, I think around 23,000 jobs or something like that? And that's people hired to construct that pipeline or augment pipeline across all that service area that you were showing on the map, all the different parts of that pipeline?
Yeah.
Is that where the jobs are coming from? I'm a former regional economist, so this is I'm narrating it, and I'm also an environmental economist. So I'm trying to figure out where are those people going to go, because like when you were showing, physically, you were showing that your new design plant and you've got a demonstration plant there now, that sounds like a huge number of people going into a very congested area already of LA. And then there's the pipeline itself, which is going to be going all over LA and the region. And it looks like it's going to be in some very crowded areas and some areas that are not so crowded. So I'm wondering where you are in the design and planning process right now. Have you thought about the populations you're going through? And I know you're trying to get the word out to all these different communities, but it looks like you have multiple counties and you're going to have thousands of workers in some areas congested, very, where you are in Carson is very congested area, So I'm trying to think about how is this going to work? Because you're talking about a multi-year construction going on physically. And I'm not sure when you do your environmental impact statement, are you going to be talking about how are you going to get all those construction workers to those sites? That's kind of the questions I'm thinking about. Where are they going to park? Because the site that you're building it on, it looks like you're taking over almost all the area that people would have, tried to transport themselves. So you're going to have buses, to move construction workers around. I'm wondering where you are in the logistics and in the environmental impact statement, which I used to read a lot as an economist. I don't think they've thought about the transportation of this multi-year project, moving people around who have the skills to build this stuff over what it sounds like a 6-year period, probably.
Deborah, I think one
Yeah.
of the key things is that job is not just the people that are throwing a hammer. It's the people that are building the pipeline that you use to do the work. It's the workers go to lunch, and so you're supporting jobs there. So it's kind of direct jobs, and I think it's also what they call indirect or induced jobs.
Yeah.
Is that, Rupam, I don't know if we know the.
Yeah, that's what
breakdown.
I'm wondering I guess part of that is the breakdown of the jobs, but also the breakdown of the people across this geographic area.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to be an environmental impact statement, or if it's going to be, clarified better, 2 or 3 years from now, because it sounds like you're doing the environmental impact statement first.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And so
We're
that's
doing
going to
that.
kick off in earnest like this fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, I'm wondering because the League of Women Voters is already dealing with people up in arms over SB 9 and SB 10, bringing in more traffic into some of these communities. So that's one of those things that I think you need to watch out for in terms of environmental impact. There's already been a number of controversies that the League of Women Voters, both in Torrance and the League of Women Voters in the Tri-League area, are talking about with transportation, trying to build something like this over an existing set of communities, I think is going to be logistically difficult. Okay, so that's the question, I guess, is I'm wondering at what point, if you're doing the environmental impact statement first, is that later on in the design and planning stage after the environmental impact that you actually think about how you're going to move the people around within a very, very congested community?
So in the EIR phase, they will do preliminary design to try to figure out how many employees exactly would be needed. And then that gets looked at as part of the EIR that say, okay, how many traffic trips is that going to be? And they'll estimate the amount of supply trips to bring in the supplies. So that all gets looked at as part of the impacts of the project. I'm not 100% on parking. I think parking used to get looked at, but I think they changed the rules, and I'm not sure if parking gets looked at anymore. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like a big number, but I think when you think about 40 miles of pipeline, they're not going to just start in one spot and kind of work all the way. They're going to probably have multiple segments of pipeline and construction. So that 40 miles of pipeline is going to be a bunch of different crews spread out. And then you have a lot of the work happening down at the plant near Carson. So yeah, I mean, they're obviously going to figure out a way to do it. You can't just have the tradespeople working all on top of each other. You know, you bring in one group and then you bring in the other group. But yeah, that will be looked at in the EIR.
Okay, so you're,
Yeah.
and then the long-term number of employees after, let's say you've built the pipeline, do you have a sense of how many will actually be in the plant in Carson? What the increase would be?
I think
think
Rupert,
it-
did you have that on your slide?
I didn't have that slide up, but I have I had that sheet right in front of me a second ago, but it's 50,000 here. Actually, I have that number. So it's 1,040 total jobs, and 220 will be directly employed workers, and 820 will be the additional jobs that, you know,
Okay.
are the induced jobs. Yeah, so 220.
That are in the major design plant facility, in the major recycling facility.
220 will be, yeah, and mostly, I mean, there'll be some along other parts and of the facility or in our headquarters buildings also too, because, you know, some of it will be people that are not working directly on that job. They might be housed somewhere else, but yes, mostly those people will be on site in Carson. The 220 people, and then the other 800 are some local, some throughout Southern California, just depending on the type of job.
Okay, all
Those are the
right.
induced jobs, yeah.
And do you have, you mentioned that you have several other partners and groups in California who are already doing this in some capacity or certain size. Do any of them have particular security protocols in place? I'm talking about both physical security and computerized security, because I'm assuming you have a hugely computerized plant is what you would end up with. And I know that's been, I'm married to the military, and I know that water treatment and other facilities that are critical are a security risk. And so this design plan, I would think, is going to have a huge computer element to it with security. And I was wondering, you know, do you have any idea what that's going to be yet?
Yeah, so at all of our facilities, you know, all of our facilities are secure facilities. You can't just walk on. You have to, you know, show that you work there, or you have to log in as a visitor and be accompanied on site. So yes, there is, and there's also a lot of cybersecurity as well too. That's yeah.
Okay, so if the League of Women Voters or other groups wanted a tour, that's part of what you would have to get a clearance for a tour. That's one of the reasons you need to organize things and get people registered for a tour, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's when we just control who comes on site. And you have access only to certain parts of the facility. So our tours, it's really for education, you know, it's for educational purposes. So we don't want to not bring people in that are interested in learning more about their water infrastructure. But yeah, we just do it in a controlled way. That's all.
Oh, all right.
I think
That's my main question
one.
right now.
Thank you, Deborah. That was awesome.
Yeah, those are great questions and great things for us to think about. All of them so far. Thank you so much.
Having attended one of the tours, I think I recall we were mostly in a bus driving around the facility to see everything. And if it was the same facility, I think there's another water treatment plant nearby as well.
Maybe the bus tour, Brian, you guys give a bus tour of the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. And then Metropolitan also does these, we used to pre-COVID do inspection trips where you get on a bus and you see different Metropolitan infrastructure. So I'm not sure which one you're on, but yes, both of those involve buses. Our demonstration facility one, the one behind me, does not involve a bus because it's small. So you can walk through it.
I actually had a question about water conservation. So You mentioned that we are doing a lot better. Is that just Southern California? Our 1 acre foot, 3 families in a year. It used to be 1 family, now it's 3. Last I checked, one of the only countries that uses more water than us was Australia per person. And I don't know if the stats are still accurate. But I always think about their water preservation. One of the things they do over there is utilize more gray water options for their toileting. Because why would we want to use fresh water on something like that? And I've always been curious as to why we didn't go in that direction here when water is so critical. And we just don't seem to be making some of those bigger changes that would make a huge difference. Instead, we opt to design toilets that use a lot less water, 1.2 gallons or 1.7 per flush, instead of using recycled water for it that's not been purified to drinking level. Um, is the Metropolitan Water District involved in other efforts to reduce water usage and increase water preservation?
Yeah, so we don't, a comment about Australia and using recycled water to flush toilets, that's great. Brian, at their main office, the LA County Sanitation District's office, they also use recycled water to flush toilets. So there are places where it's used. And the reason so when you use recycled water, let's say in a facility, you have to have 2 separate lines. You have to have your potable water line, you have to have your recycled water line. So in areas, especially in like the LA area where things are already built and constructed, and water recycling, Brian's agency was the first one in the US to start doing that. That was back or for at least for part of the drinking water supply, but even the other systems, that was back in the 1960s, right, Brian? There wasn't really any planned water reuse before that. So because places were already built, homes were built, and so it's really hard to go back in and create this new infrastructure. And so in Southern California, the push for water recycling has really been on these large infrastructure projects, where it's kind of a centralized system where an agency takes it on and takes your wastewater, your sewage, and will recycle it and send it back through your regular drinking water system. Or there's purple pipe systems, what we call purple pipe systems, where you use that recycled water for irrigation, and you might see signs that say recycled water is being used to irrigate this area. See it a lot at parks, at schools, in street medians. But that also requires the construction of a whole new distribution system to get that recycled water to be used for irrigation purposes. So if you want to use a lot of recycled water, the best way to do that is through projects like we're proposing, just because you can use existing infrastructure, or you build just one large pipeline rather than hundreds of miles of smaller pipeline to get that water into streets. And so that's kind of been the approach. So that's why we're considered leaders in these centralized recycled water systems. The other things that Metropolitan's invested in, besides conservation programs, so we have a number of different conservation programs, and we do them in partnership with our member agencies, and I highly recommend you take advantage of them if you haven't already. So we have rebates for low flow toilets, for water saving washing machines. We offer funding for ripping out your lawn and putting in drought tolerant plants, and that funding amount has been increased, and many of our member agencies have increased it even more. So there's a lot of good funding available for that. Right now, we also have a funding program for installing this flow meter in your house, where you can track your water usage across your house. So you can find leaks, you can find where are you using the most water, and then use data to kind of reduce your water usage. So those are just some of the things we do on the conservation side. We also offer rain barrels. So when it does rain, you can collect that water, use it to water your plants. All of that helps conserve water as well too. And the county, LA County, has invested in some stormwater improvement projects too, to help capture even more. There is a lot of capturing of stormwater, but to capture even more stormwater, they've invested through some Measure W. Maybe you've heard about it, but they've invested in a lot of local stormwater projects too. So some of those are some of the other things happening in our region when it comes to water.
Okay,
Yeah.
where I live in Torrance, they have their own water.
Yes.
I'd love to have a water barrel, and I would love to have something showing me where I can conserve water better. Does Torrance provide those things free like the Metropolitan does, or do I have to call them to find out?
They're our member agency. So yes, they provide stuff. And Leah, I don't know if you're available to unmute yourself, if you want to add anything, or if you want to add anything to the chat as well too. Maybe she's not available right now.
Rupam, if I could jump in,
Sure.
I do believe, I think West Basin and the city of Torrance work with the South Bay Council of Governments Environmental Services Center. So I would check with them because I think they implement the programs that Metropolitan offers throughout Southern California. But I know the city of Torrance and West Basin team up with the South Bay Environmental Center.
Thank you.
If they don't, give me a call back and I will chase it down for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
I did have two more questions. I'll ask one at a time, and if anybody else has questions, feel free to jump in. I don't want to hog the question session. You mentioned that the cost of this program will end up being $1,826 per acre foot, which is higher than what we're currently getting, but I mean, that might only be temporary because it'll end up costing more when water becomes more scarce, right? But my question is that on a timeline? So that's the amount it's going to be for, let's say, 30 years that this project is going to cost, or once the capital expenditures are paid and it's down to just the cost of running the actual recycling plant or part of it, will that go down?
So that's just like a simple cost right now that we did based on looking at like a projection for like 30 years out, basically financing all of this for, and the cost, it was done in 2018. So it's actually likely going to go up because everything costs more now. And we're actually in the midst of doing a more refined cost estimate and a rate study. So that's how much we're selling our water for, but what does that, translate to for our member agencies when they purchase the water, and for ratepayer or for homeowner, people, residential customers, like when to their water bill. So those are the different things that we're looking at right now too. So
Laura,
no, it would. Go ahead,
from my own
Brian.
experience on these things, we often try to like amortize the capital cost over like 30 years. There's like a state revolving fund program where we can get loans at low interest. And so you can spread those costs out over 30 years at low interest rate. And so you're right, at the end of 30 years, in theory, you've kind of paid off that $3.4 billion in capital, but pumps and pipes and stuff, they need replacement over time. And so I don't think it's fair to think that cost is going to totally go away. At some point, there'll be cost for replacement things. The other part of that cost is operational. So it's like labor costs, electricity, chemicals, and those things tend to track with inflation. So I would imagine that cost is probably going to go up a little bit year to year, just with inflation. And maybe after 30 years, the loan's paid off, maybe there's a dip in those costs.
Thank you, Brian.
Else has a question, but I had one more question. So we talked about, and Deborah brought this up, some additional challenges that the project may face, like how do we transport workers? How do we get enough workers? How would we house them or get them to the projects at parking, etc. Do you have any expectations for other barriers or complications that might delay or postpone or cause changes to the project over time? Are there any that you kind of expect might occur? Like, as was discussed, it's harder to build in an already built area. Are you expecting public to step up and say, no, we don't want you here, or no, we don't want you there, or is it a money thing, or what are things that we could do to help you to try to overcome some of those barriers?
Oh, that's great. So one of the things that we're actually trying to, it's the opposite. We're trying to accelerate this project and find anything we can do to take some time off our timeline and get it going even sooner. And so one of the things we're making a big push for right now is funding. And so the state budget, there's going to be a revision in the state budget coming out in early May, and we're really hoping for some funding in that budget, $500 million for this project. So if you regularly write to your state legislators, if you want to indicate your support for this program, that would be really, really helpful if that's something you do. So that's one of our big push right now. These next couple coming weeks before May is trying to get some of that funding established. And then as we move on to, you mentioned, the pipeline construction being in different neighborhoods. So we are trying to work with cities, the cities that will have eventual program facilities in their communities. And so if, you work closely in those cities and you're interested in speaking at a city council meeting, I'm assuming at some point we'll be at various city council meetings. If you're interested in writing letters of support to our own board, especially when we certify environmental documents, those things are really helpful when you talk to anybody, your neighbors, your friends, just sharing information about this program and just getting the word out there. There's so much going on in the world right now that I know it's hard for people to take on one more thing. So in a casual conversation, if you can mention it, that would be great too. We like to say showers to flowers. That's what's happening. So here with this project. So all those kinds of different things would be helpful. Brian, Charles, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, but Jackie, I did look up and I put in the chat the
I've
link.
got it. Thank you very much. I'm putting it down right now.
Okay, and it looks like they offer the program, but there's an interest waiting list if you're interested in the program.
Naturally.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a waiting list. It just says interest in the program. So I don't know if they do it seasonally or not. So,
Yeah.
but take a look at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another thing I was just thinking, of course, I'm a retired teacher, so I'm thinking just something as simple as a list that we could give it to the kids in the schools. They could take it home to their families or something. I keep thinking about how we got cigarette smoking lowered in this world and this country particularly was really because of the kids. They were learning all about how bad smoke is for themselves, and they went home and told their parents, quit smoking, you're killing me. So if we had a list of the things, just like what you said about taking a shower, if you are in the shower 1 minute less, you could save a gallon of water. And how many gallons of water does a family normally use in a day, and what we can do to cut down on the amount of water we use. And I'll bet we might be able to get some information across to the public that they don't know anything about, especially I'm thinking for showers, teenagers, because they're terrible in the shower. They get in there and they don't know how to get out. I raised 4, I know.
Egg timers for all the parents of teenagers, right? You got 3 minutes. Go.
Yeah, seriously,
Here's your
teenagers
song.
could change it all if they took shorter showers.
I
Well,
was
that or
just thinking
putting
that
buckets in the
kind of
shower.
that kind of information out on social media, and that's something I don't even pay attention to, but I hear about it from my grandchildren all the time. And it just might, a blast out that just reminding them that this is something that they could do to save the environment that they're growing into. So,
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's a really good idea.
Just going to add one thing to Gloria's last question about barriers. I mean, knock on wood, so far, I think the outreach meetings I've been to have been pretty positive. I think people realize our water situation is changing and that we need to invest. This is just such an essential resource for us as society. So generally, I think the feedback has been good. You know, I think you pointed out rightly that although $1,800 an acre foot may seem like a lot now, it's not 1,800 bucks versus some cheap water source. All the cheap water is gone. It's all spoken for. It's $1,800 versus something else that may be more expensive or more environmentally impactful. And so, and we think this is a good solution and an important investment. And so far, I think the people we've talked to seem to understand that.
Deborah,
Did you have a new question? I think I see your hand raised.
Yes. When you're asking us how we can support you, you mentioned too, I think, California state bills, an assembly bill and for funding, and one other bill. I didn't know, Gloria, this question for you, Gloria, and you know, the league and the group. If the California State League has said anything formal about support for funding something like this.
well, generally speaking, in our information sessions, we're part of the education arm of the League of Women Voters, so we wouldn't discuss any positions we take when we're providing information sessions. But if you are interested in finding out, you can go to the website. We have a state website, we have the county website, we have our local website that does list the positions that we've taken. And I don't know if we've stated it for the specific assembly bills that were mentioned.
Yeah, and I only heard the name of one bill, but I believe there's another one that was mentioned. That's why I was asking the question. Can we clarify what those?
The first bill
Yeah.
was AB 1845 by Lisa Calderon. She's out of Whittier. The other one was SB 991 by Senator Josh Newman, and he's in Fullerton.
Okay.
And both of those bills dealt with design build, which expedites a construction bidding process for public and private agencies, or for public agencies, sorry.
All right, that's the specifics I needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
And all right, so I don't know if we have any other questions, but I did actually have a comment. You mentioned, Rupam, that among the many water preservation programs that are discussed or shared, the option to install drought-tolerant plants is something that people can get a rebate for. I'm just going to put a little plug here for native plants, for California native plants, to help support the biodiversity in California as well. Sometimes I look and see a cactus garden, and it's not generally something that supports the local wildlife as well as a native garden can. So for those of you who are interested in the rebate and still want to help support the biodiversity in California, there's a wonderful website called calscape.org. You can put in your address and find out what native plants you can plant in your area that are native to your specific city and street, and then also benefit from the rebate if you're in an area that benefits from the rebate. So I appreciate that. Thank you for mentioning it.
Yeah, Gloria, I wanted to add to that. We as the water industry learned a lot about native plants and drought tolerant plants when we started the campaign almost 20 years ago. And then we've also worked regionally, which you're suggesting, that you plant appropriate stuff in your yard. Obviously, what you would plant in Redondo Beach or Torrance in a coastal climate would be completely different than what you would plant in Riverside. So I do believe West Basin has come up with the term coastal friendly, or I think it's California coastal friendly, that emphasizes the plants that are appropriate for the coastal community that that you live in. So you may want to take a look at their website. They have some resources as well.
They also offer garden design services too. They mentioned that to me the other day. My parents live in West Basin service area, so I was asking them questions for that. And so that's something too to keep in mind, that sometimes that's a hurdle for people, is they don't know how to rip out their grass and what to put and where to put it and how to put it. So yeah, those services are really helpful too. And then also helpful in selecting plants, because there's some native plants. I've dabbled a little bit, but there's some that are much easier to grow than others. If you're not used to natives, if you're just starting out in the world of natives. And so they can give guidance on that too. And we also have some resources on our Be Waterwise site, which are like, the top native plants to plant and why. So some, what you talked about, Gloria, that they attract certain wildlife. So if you're looking for that, or some because they're fast growing and they're easy to grow. So even if you have a brown thumb, you can still have a beautiful native plant and you're good. Just lots of resources out there if you're looking to invest in native plants.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I do have a native garden myself, and absolutely you're going to have some fails.
Yes.
But it's good to have some successes too. All right. Well, any other questions here before we wrap up tonight's event? Thank you for your wonderful questions. Thank you for your wonderful answers. And just an opportunity here to say that ways to support this project include writing to your state legislature, writing letters to your city to support the program, and also just mentioning them to your neighbors and other peers to let them know that this project is on its way, and that we and to talk about the concerns we have for water and other ways to preserve water.
Thank you. You all have been such a wonderful audience. You make me want to join the League of Women Voters of the Torrance area. So don't be surprised if you see me at a future meeting.